Here by all of you, and that Dean and everybody, Debbie just created this space, and we're going to be speaking about that today. Like, I don't know how it all works out, but I'm going to have to trust it does. First of all, I want to thank every one of you for being here today. We're creating something together. We're creating something, and we're holding it within ourselves, and we're able to take that and walk with that. And so we all need our spaces to come to remember who we really are. And I just want to thank Unity for always letting me come here, because when I am given a subject or I choose a subject, it's the greatest gift I really get, because I go deep. For me, whatever that means. And today I'm talking about something that is pivotal in all of my being, and that's life after life. And or some people say life after death, but for me it's life after life. And I'll tell you why. When I was a little girl, really young, you start to wake up and you start to notice the people in your life, and there's so much love and fun and the whole thing. And then you notice some people get sick sometimes, and some people, and with a little child, disappear. They're gone. And even though I've had training, and I was in the Catholic Church, and we talked about heaven and angels and all of that, when I thought about losing the people I loved, it was just devastating to me, even as a child. So I had to ask, I started asking myself, because I had a lot of fear, I don't want to lose anybody. As a matter of fact, I said in my little mind, you know what, I'd rather go first before everyone else. And I realized that sometimes it comes to you, even when you're very young, how you're going to walk. That particular thought and that question and that fear that I had became a driving force in my life to figure out what is going on here? Why am I here? What's the purpose, and why do people come and go? And where do they go? So there were all these questions that arose. So fast forward in my 30s, I love my grandfather Zukoski. He was the one that took me on walkabouts in his acreage, and we would track animals. We would find their tracks, and he would tell me which animals they were. He taught me to divine for water. He was so gentle, and my grandfather was my spirit animal. he was so important to me. And I had a feeling that I should see him. I was in my 30s. I was a professional working as a speech therapist. And one day I was like, I got to see Grandpa. He's in Michigan and I'm in Florida. And I call and I make a ticket for the next day. And I call Grandpa and I tell him, I'm coming to see you. And he's so excited. And I go to the airport and take off, and I just can feel him, when you're getting ready to meet someone you love. I just had him in me as a part of me. And when I got there, my Aunt Judy picked me up, and she told me, your grandfather has gone. It was such a shock, and it was my godmother that picked me up, and she was so gentle, and she was so loving. And I became a different kind of an adult then, because I was going to join in finding the ceremony and the sacredness of this passing of the person I loved. So after all the working through the details, I was in the place where they showed the body, the coffin, and I was really nervous about seeing my grandfather. He was my favorite person in the world. He's the one that grounded me. And I felt a little ungrounded. I felt like, I didn't know what I could trust anymore. This was kind of scary. Even at 30, I hadn't worked through it enough to have a sense about it. So no one was there. It was before everyone came, and I walked in the room, and it had an aisle like this, and I walked all the way up, and the coffin was there, and my grandfather was laid out, and I saw him, and I just wept. I was so sad to see him there. And I was just weeping and weeping, and then I stopped. And I looked at him. I really looked. I was like, wait a minute, my grandfather isn't here. So I walked out. I was like, what's going on here? And then I came back in by myself, and I thought I'd do it again. And I went up to the coffin again, where he was laid to rest, in a simple pine box, which he would have liked. And I looked at him again, and I started to talk to him, and I said, Grandpa, are you there? Where did you go? And then I could feel in my body that it was okay. That something had happened here that I didn't understand at all, but he was no longer in that form. But my grandfather was still with me. I could feel him. So for me, that was an eye-opening moment. It kind of set me on a path to even dive further, because my mortality, like, where am I going? Where are all the people that I love are going? Where are all these human beings going? We have 80, 100 years if we're lucky. What happens here? That journey for me started because of the people I love having a transition. And for you, what is it for you? Have you had that thought about, and I imagine all of you have, that what happens here? Where am I going? What the heck am I doing here? There's a lot of crazy stuff here. How am I walking? So life after life is a call to me. Because at first it was life after death, like you go away. That we're impermanent. And there's nothing we can do about it. But then I thought, maybe I'm looking at this all wrong. So anyway, I'm going to take you through a little journey. It's my journey. You all have your journeys. I'd love to hear it, because this is such an important question. What is it for you? What is this life about? And what is this afterlife about? It's like the breath. It's like the ocean, and the water comes in, and you have a life, and the water goes out. Just like our breath. You inspire, and you expire, again and again. So I think part of this is such a sacred incarnation. Like, whatever it is about, it feels really special to be here. Even given the fact that the people that we love, and even ourselves, have a time here. It seems crazy, because when I'm in life, I'm having fun, or not, and it feels so full, but I get it isn't the whole story. So I think about two visionaries, and one is Tesla, and he always comes up for me. And he says, if you really want to know about the universe, look into energy, vibration, and frequency. Now, this is the way my mind works. It might not work for you, but those are all invisible. But I do know that, even as a scientist, that all of that has real, it's real in our life. We aren't what we think we are. We aren't this body here. We are actually, in fact, mostly space. What are you talking about? But so that mystery, when he says that, I hear that over and over again, I lean back in that, and I say to myself, my senses and my body and my heart, I don't really know what's going on, and it's okay. So then I looked up Carl Jung, and thought, well, what would he have to say about it? because of course he worked in subconscious all the time. And he said, birth and death are very special states in the human condition. He said they're peculiar psyche. He said, kind of like how we dream and how you can envision the future sometimes. He said those things are not accountable and they're hard to measure, but they are as real as anything else. Again, that mystery called me. So I'm going to tell you a little story about personal experiences. We all have plenty of personal experiences of having people that you know or you love, and in some way you have walked with them or heard about them as they have made that shift from this body into we don't know what. I was working at Central Park Lodge in Tampa, Florida as a speech therapist. And part of my job was to go in when people came and make sure that they could swallow and they could eat. And I would assess them to figure out what diet would work for them and not kill them for some people. So part of my job was that, and I got a call to go up to the second floor, and I went up to Mr. Jones' room. I got his paperwork, Mr. Jones, and he was in his mid-80s, and I went in there and I was like, hey, Mr. Jones. It looked like he was sleeping. Hey, Mr. Jones. And I went and checked him, and it's like, oh, Mr. Jones isn't here. So I went out quickly, called the nurses, they rushed in, and I left, and I had to proceed, but of course I was going to check in. Yeah, the nurses said, yeah, it looks like he's gone to his maker. And I said, okay, that was a surprise. So I'm walking down the hall to see somebody else, and I just want to pop in there, peek my head in, and there's Mr. Jones sitting up. And I'm like, hey, Mr. Jones, what is going on here? I said, hi, how are you? And he said, yeah, I'm good. I said, I'm kind of surprised to see you. And I said, where have you been? And he said, well, an interesting thing happened. He said, I was laying here, and I opened my eyes, and at the end of my bed was Jesus Christ. And Jesus had his arms out. And he was so lovely. And he was telling me it was time to come home. And behind him, I saw my mother and my father. And he had told me the story, and I was just so touched. So here I am, a speech therapist, trying to do a job, but I got there was something so much bigger happening here. So I sat with him a little while, and I just talked with him, probably held his hand, and I thought, well, I'll come back and check his, how he's eating and drinking, but so I left to go get the juice cup and, the things I needed to check, and got back there about a half hour later, and guess what? He was gone. Mr. Jones is gone, but this time for good. He wasn't coming back. I don't know, that little glimpse. How grateful I was for that. I didn't know Mr. Jones, but I didn't feel a sense of sadness. I felt curious and interested. I was like, wow. So, I'm just trying to think of, excuse me for this. So that idea of where do our people go? Well, when we lose someone that's close to us, sometimes you can't really ask that question. You have to walk through the sadness of the body being dropped of someone you love, and you can't figure it out, and you have to walk through that. You have to walk through that grief. But at some point, there's something intuitive that might come up that says, wait a minute, I can feel my loved one. Wow, I can feel them like they're with me all the time. or maybe you're noticing butterflies all the time and you feel like every time you see one, that's Mom. But every one of us has some sort of intuition. We're wired larger than we think we are. And the idea that we are a spirit within a body doesn't fit anymore when you start to talk about mortality and what happens next. I've heard this before, but I really believe it. Our body is in the field of spirit. So, have you ever had those intuitions or connections with the people you love? Did you have a dream that was so real that it didn't feel like it was a dream at all? And your person came to you and said, hey, they're looking good. They're looking younger. They're saying, hey, I'm doing fine. You're okay. I love those stories, and I kind of gotten into watching Tyler Henry. If any of you know him, he's a young medium.
I'm watching that.
Yeah, I am actually hooked on his work, and we all have mediumship. That means we all can all feel beyond what our sensations are here. Anyway, Tyler Henry is a very gifted young man, and he comes at it very honestly. He started to feel the energy of his grandmother. He knew when she was going, and of course the family was upset. He didn't fit in, and he became a nurse, and he was there to work and help people heal, best he could. But what he found out is that when he was with people, he was hearing from another side. And so all I want to say to you is, if we widen our view, if we widen the way we see things, if we go deep, like Dean was creating a space for, there's a place where there's silence. And we are connected in a way to the one that often we don't feel. So making that space to be quiet is so important. So the idea of mediumship seems like it's special, but it's not. We all have that ability. And to know that it's not a scary thing, but it's a life-affirming thing. That if you are getting some sort of message, even if it's just an intuitive knowledge that everything's okay at some point, and that I need to walk forward in my life because this is my job. That's powerful. And I really think it's important to host that. It's the mystery. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. Being a scientist, I was a speech pathologist in my life. I'm very attracted to consciousness and kind of the biology of beingness, including our consciousness. And I just saw a gentleman, Dr. Gary Schwartz, on Guy MTV. He was being interviewed. And he is a consciousness scientist. And I got so excited by listening to him. And he has this, he joined a group recently, and I think it's called, I'm going to have to look it up because I'm going to forget, but it's important. It's called, I call it FLP, but it's Focused Life Force Energy. Focused Life Force Energy. You actually spoke about that. And he's working with a group of people that are dedicated to finding the scientific ways to actually create fields of awareness for people to raise their vibration and also to communicate with other realms, especially the ones where our loved ones are. And they are actually using measurement and tools, but what they're doing, they're mostly finding out that they can tell how things are working in these experiments and these fields that they create by the reports that they're getting from the people. One of the interesting things that they are working on is called a soul phone. where you can call your loved one. And I just think that's so interesting. But just listening to them, these people aren't just crazy and they're not out for money. They have that mystery living in them, deeply within them. And so that fields of consciousness and how to focus that energy, that's all we're asked to do in life. How are you walking? Which way are you walking? So I have a story to tell you that I experienced about fields of energy. And it's a little out there, but I want to tell you.
Nothing's too far out.
Nothing's too far out, thank you. I actually think that too. About 16 years ago, I had a really good friend named Cynthia that went through ministry school with me. And she was a part of our community. And she lived in Florida, and I flew from Florida to Huntsville to study every month. And we became good friends. And she was just very alternative person. And I just admire that. I love that. She was kind of a earth girl. She loved the earth. And during our ministry, which was 3 years, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And it was stage 4. And, at first there's a lot of denial from everybody, including Cynthia. But it became apparent as time went on that she wasn't going to be able to keep her mortal coil. And I was so drawn to be with her during this time. Now, I didn't know Cynthia that well. My sister actually asked me, why are you spending so much time with this woman you don't even know? I think sometimes you have a soul calling. And I got to know Cynthia in a way that we would have never gotten to know each other at the soul-to-soul level. And she didn't want to talk about leaving, so I would lay with her in her bed. And she would say, would you pray with me? And I would make sure to not say any prayers that had death or dying or anything scary for her in it. But we talked about nature. We prayed about how we're one. And I would do these long prayers with her, and I would just be walking her through nature and celebrating her life and celebrating her inner child. That was a beautiful thing. But there was some deep sadness in me, and I was scared. I was kind of ungrounded. I didn't know what to do, like how do I show up, what's going to happen here. I've been close to people, but never that emotionally close where you're walking together with someone. I was asked to stay with her one night. Someone always stayed with her, and I said, okay, I will. And it was a challenging night because she was very, very, very sick. And I could feel it. You can sense it from all your senses. And she was sleeping most of the time. And I would check on her often, and I would help her go to the bathroom or whatever. And I was just like, what do I do here? She was sleeping, and it's late. And she had a little bedroom, and in the bedroom was a single bed. And next to the bed was her just a little dresser with her gurus, the person that she kind of went to open up spiritually, and it was Guruji or Mamaji, and she was the hugging mama. And it was a picture of her when she was a little girl, so that was on the table. There was nothing else in the room. It was pretty barren. And I just pulled the covers up, and I fell deep asleep. At some point, probably around 2 or 3 in the morning, I awoke to a river of light. I was in a river of golden light. I could not see my hands. I couldn't feel my body. I was flowing in this river, and it was big. And I was so ungrounded. I was like trying to struggle, but also feeling this movement. It was me. I was there. And I got so at some point, I don't know how long that went on for, but I got up and I started just walking back and forth in this little tiny room to feel my body again. And eventually I did. I don't know how long that lasted. It seemed like a long, long time. It might have been only a minute or two. But there was something there that was so sacred. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Cynthia's. It was something that was larger, and it was love. There was peace and harmony. And there was no fear in there. And it helped me to shift somehow to walk differently with Cynthia and to walk her all the way home. So, yeah, so what can you say about that sort of thing? We can just be open to what's presented to us. Sometimes you will be given something that is very sacred, and you'll know it. And I invite you to go ahead and rest with it. Allow it to come up. Even if it's past a thought where you're feeling into your body and you feel some sort of opening or connection. So what is life after life? And I'm not really answering that question, am I? I can tell you honestly, I have no idea. I love near-death experiences. Again, I watched thousands of them. And Dr. Brian Weiss was the leader in doing regressions for people. I find that fascinating. And it's just another window into a possibility. You know, are we what we think we are? Are we who we think we are? I really do know that I don't know. I have a little theory, and I call it forest of the heart. And I believe that we all have a forest of our heart. We have challenges that are specific to us. We have joys, we have experiences, we have sometimes devastation or fear. But that's all a part of whatever this life is. This life, from the date you're born to the date you die, that dash, right? This life. And you're walking through this forest, and you know what? You walk alone. You're not lonely, but you walk alone. No one can walk it for you. And as you're meeting these things, you make decisions, and you choose, and there's no wrong choice. You can't do it wrong. There's always something to learn. And following your soul, following your path, will lead you to the light. Sometimes when you're deep in the forest and you don't know where you are, you can look over to the right and you can see someone you love. I can see Michael there. Or I'll look to the left and I see Sharon. And I know they too are walking their path, and there's comfort in that. So, when I come down to it, it's something about the in-breath and the out-breath. That seems to be like something about death and life and death, coming into being and going out. And I looked it up. Do you know we have 17,000 to 25,000 breaths a day? Wow. And my feeling is that each one is a life and a death, and a life and a death. And that when you become aware or conscious, when you shift into some sort of other mode, like tune it up, you can realize that every moment is sacred. Every decision you make is precious. And sometimes we go to sleep, but we can always wake up in the next moment and walk towards love, walk towards the light. So what if life after life is like this? You're breathing in and out, and your life is walking forward. And then one day, you breathe in, and you breathe out, and you're born again into another place. Could it be that way? There's a channeled person named Emmanuel, and I love what he says. It really helps me. He said, dying is like taking off a very tight pair of shoes. And I love that. or diving into the perfect pool and just swimming away. I'm not sure what it means, and I certainly, from your standpoint, there's every one of you have this experience that's so precious. We're here together sharing it. I don't think that death is the fearful boogeyman I thought it was anymore. I think it's a reminder to live completely and fully present every single moment and love radically. Just love outrageously. Tell the people you love them. Forgive those that you think have harmed you. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. Moment to moment. And then if some of that goes away, visit it again the next moment. Maybe you can meditate, go for a walk outside in the woods. There's so many things you can do. Pet your kitty cat. 5 kitty cats. Whatever it is, you will be led to that. So I just want to say, I hope I get to talk to you all about your point of view. But we're going to close this today with a little Buddhist writing from Pema Chodron and her teacher. And it's just part of a writing about death and dying. And I just invite you for a second to, if you will, just close your eyes and let's just feel where you are right now. Taking in that breath and watching it leave you. Then watch it arrive without any action on your part. You are being breathed alive and given a new moment over and over again. When the appearances of this life dissolves, may I with ease and great happiness let go of all attachment to this life, like a son or a daughter returning home. When the appearances of this life dissolves, may I with ease and great happiness let go of all attachment to this life, like a son or a daughter returning home. You're always home. And so it is.